Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all about parenting, good communication, and building strong family bonds all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And today we're talking about teaching children to be considerate of the rights of others. In this video, we're going to be talking about what generally happens with children trying to control each other and how they are stepping on each other's rights. We're going to talk about what a right is and then how to help children learn to be considerate of each other's rights. Bullying is on the rise. Unkindness is pretty much the new social norm, which is very sad. In fact, I was just in a conversation the other day when a person expressed a different viewpoint from mine, which is fine. Happy hearing other people's viewpoints, but they did it in a way that was just very unkind, very rude, really, on purpose. And I thought to myself, nobody is going to listen to you now. Now that you phrased it in that way, when you don't show consideration for other people, when you don't show that you value them or honor them when you're sharing an alternate opinion from theirs, everyone who is listening suddenly thinks of your opinion as not very valid. And people don't realize that. Well, at least that's how it used to be. I guess I should say that. That is the mature way to analyze communication. But I think for most people, it's still kind of their fallback, their go-to. But in modern culture, we are actually nurturing wildness, and we are making it so that some people think if you didn't get aggressive, angry, or whatever, then you don't believe it enough, you don't feel it enough, you're not convincing enough. And so actually we're creating an environment where our communications right now are not considerate because we think that that's more convincing to show that kind of emotion in our communications about things that we're passionate about. Honestly, that's so sad because we don't come to truth if we're just worrying about emotionally manipulating each other. So let's talk then. What is a right? Why do we need to know about that? And how do we help our children to not fall for this same social trap that so many people are falling for, that really is promoting wildness, unkindness, and is degrading the whole of society? In a day and age where rights have pretty much been made up all over the world, I do think it's important to understand what a right is. There are basic rights that a person has, but the funny thing is most of those basic rights are not articulated. So the United Nations, which is an international organization that I actually have consultative status at, has human rights that it's articulated for people, and then it also has what they call child rights. So interesting that the human rights are somehow different than the child rights. In fact, the human rights, there are less of them than the child rights. They've listed 45 rights for children, and many of them are not really rights at all. In fact, they are just things that people think, according to their understanding or what they think a child should be raised like, that children should have as rights. And these child rights have been perpetuated all across the globe. In fact, much to my chagrin, because I look at what some parents think their children have as a right, and I see them ruining their own children. So for instance, one of the rights is a right to have unfiltered internet. That's not really a right that a child has, because if they have a right to an unfiltered internet, then that takes away their right of parents. So we have to know what a child's basic rights are, and then we can help a person see what they need to honor and be considerate of. So there are things like a right for a child to be medicated by the government. Again, that removes parental rights. A right to freedom from religion. Again, that could remove parental rights. There are sexual rights, which again would remove the parents from their input, Because what if a person thinks for their sexual rights they should be having sex, and the child says, or the parent says, no, that's dangerous, risky behavior. You shouldn't be doing that. Well, then that removes the role of the parent again. So if there is any right that frustrates a role, then it's probably not a right. And so we have to remember that. So it's important for us to know exactly what a right is. I'm going to define that for you. We're going to talk about that. But before I do, I want you to click that subscribe button, because that subscribe button, if you click it, gives you more information like this. You'll be able to see it in your feed more often. And don't forget the notification bell either, so that you're notified when new videos come out. In Webster's 1828 dictionary, which happens to be my favorite dictionary because words have not been corrupted in that dictionary, it's back to their original meanings. We didn't start switching a lot of words around for our purposes and to manipulate or confuse people, way back then. So I love it. And plus, it's such a comprehensive dictionary. So Webster's 1828 dictionary, it defines right as having a just cause. Having a just cause. So then, do we understand what just means? So we need to look up the word just next. The word just in Webster's 1828 dictionary means moral, upright, true, and honest. So if you have a moral, upright, true, or honest cause, then that means it would have to go back to principle. It would have to go back to truth. Well, one of the main principles that a person has in their life, one of their main truths, is who they really are. These would be self-evident truths, not things that you could adjust ever just based upon how you feel. These would be things that you are who you are. Like you are a child because you have parents, and because you are a certain age, you are a child, or you are a parent because you have children. Those go back to truths about your identity and your role in life and who you are. So those would be just. So then your just cause as a parent would be your parental rights to teach your child, to honor that role. Now, the child actually, their role is learner. So what is their just cause in that role? They have a right to learn. They have a right to be taught by their parents. That is their number one right. So for years I did therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens, and they would always say to me, okay, so there are rights and there are privileges, and you can't take away any of the rights. So they would say, the children have to have a bed to sleep in, clothes to wear, 3 meals a day, and a roof over their head. If you ever remove any of those things, then you could end up going to court, the child could be taken away from you, etc. And I thought to myself, I've been some other places in the world, and in some other places in the world, those 4 things are not rights. They are still privileges. And so I put a lot of thought into it, and I thought, what does the child have claim on at the very beginning of their life? Well, they can't get here without a certain order, without a certain structure. They can't get here without cells from a mother and a father. So that means they have claim upon having a mother and a father to love them. They have a claim, they have a just cause. It's a truth that they couldn't get here without mother and father. So they have claim upon parents, love from parents. And as I reasoned it out, I realized that is actually the number one right that a child has, is love from parents. So how do we as a society be considerate of that? How do we teach our children to be considerate of that? Well, the very first thing we do is we teach them to honor parents. They've got to understand the roles and honor their parental authority. If the learner won't learn or the teacher won't teach, then you have dysfunction. The child will not find freedom or happiness if they don't honor their parents and develop a good relationship with them. Now, I do know not every home has great parents. In fact, I know that there are some that we really need to take them to parenting school. And I have help for that, okay? teachingselfgovernment.com, that's help. But they have to want it, right? And there are some parents who don't want to change, they don't want to care, and they are going to be dysfunctional, awful parents. I get that. That doesn't change that the child has a right to love from parents. They have a right to parents who will teach them and train them. They have a right to that learning. They may not get their rights honored. The parents might not be considerate of the rights of that child. But if a parent is, and they do the teaching, they do the training, they correct, they strengthen and nourish and nurture that child, then the child has their rights being honored by the parent. And if the child is taught to honor the parental role or their parental rights, then hopefully that will translate to them honoring all other people. It's that family bonding that happens within the bounds of the roles in the home that teaches the child to honor, respect the rights and roles of everyone around them. So if we want more civility, if we want less bullying, less contention, then what we need is more honor of roles. We need honor of true rights, which are just causes, not just choices. We need more truth, more morality, more honesty. That's what we need. This book here, Roles, The Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success, was a book that I wrote long after my first book about parenting. It was also written after my course. My first course. My second course definitely incorporates this into it. But I wrote this after a while because I realized after I'd been teaching parenting for a long time that there were many people that even though they needed the 4 basic skills of self-government, even though they needed to know how to correct their child's out-of-control problems, if their relationships weren't where they needed to be because they didn't understand who they were in the home and they were just in survival mode all the time, that they would have a problem. And so this book here is designed to help families. You can even read it together as a family because it's a story and you learn through the story. Many people have called it genius. They absolutely love how they learn through this story of the Justice family, which is like a case study. If you can read this and understand who you are, and if your children can read it with you, or you can have the discussions these parents have with their children, with your children, then hopefully you can get on the same page with who you are in your roles. And then if you can be considerate of those roles for each other and talk about the roles of everybody else around you and the rights associated with those roles, like the role of teacher or the role of pastor or bishop or minister, or or what's the role of president of your country? What are these roles? What do they entail? And then you can teach a person to be considerate of who someone really is. Then they'll value them. And then they'll be considerate of their rights, their cause, the honesty, the truth that is associated with that principle of who they really are, of their role in society. This book, you can find it on Audible. You can find it at teachingselfgovernment.com. It is a great read aloud for the family. So go to teachingselfgovernment.com and find this book today.